My world imploded over a cup of coffee. I never got a drink. It's funny how the most mundane moments can become the prelude to your life shattering. For the past 2 months, I felt like I was living in a house of mirrors, where every reflection was distorted and nothing was as it seemed. My wife, Isabella, who I had been with for 8 years and married for 6, had become a stranger, a secretive, jumpy, emotionally distant stranger. I've never been a jealous man. Our relationship was built on a foundation of trust, so solid I never once questioned it. We were the couple our friends pointed to as an example. But then the cracks started to appear. It began with her phone. It was always face down, always on her person. The charger moved from her bedside table to bathroom, and she'd take it with her even for a 30-second trip to the kitchen. She'd started a new yoga class a few months back, something about finding her center and managing work stress. I was fully supportive. Her job in marketing was demanding, and if yoga brought her peace, great. But 1 class a week became 3, then 5. She was spending more evenings at the studio than at home. When I'd ask about her practice, her answers were vague, rehearsed. It was good, really challenging, just what I needed. Then she'd immediately ask me a question about my day, deftly steering the conversation away. The warmth in her eyes when she looked at me had dimmed, replaced by a preoccupied, distant look. I started feeling like a roommate she was politely tolerating. The real red flag, though, was her best friend, Sophia. Sophia and Isabella were like sisters. She was a constant, cheerful presence in our lives, always quick with a laugh and a story. But lately, Sophia had been acting bizarrely around me. She'd avoid eye contact, her laughter was strained, and she'd find excuses to cut her visit short. The most telling incident happened a week ago. I came home from work a little early and found them huddled at the kitchen island, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. The moment I stepped into the room, they fell silent as if someone had hit a mute button. Isabella flashed me a smile, so brittle I thought it might crack her face. "Oh, hey, honey. We were just planning a surprise for Sophia's mom's birthday." Sophia, meanwhile, looked like a rabbit caught in a snare. She mumbled a greeting, grabbed her purse, and practically fled from the house. Later, I asked Isabella what that was all about. She sighed a little theatrically and said, "Oh, you know Sophia. She's having some female trouble. She's embarrassed to talk about it in front of you. You startled us, that's all." The explanation felt flimsy, a piece of cheap fabric that wouldn't hold up to any scrutiny. A cold knot of dread began to form in my stomach. The white lies started piling up. She told me she was having dinner with a colleague from work, but when I later mentioned that colleague in passing, she seemed to have no memory of the dinner. When I pressed, she backtracked, saying it was a different person from a different department. Another time, she claimed she was working late, but I drove past her office at 8 p.m. and the lights were off. When I gently, carefully, asked her if everything was okay between us, if she was stressed or unhappy, she reacted with shocking defensiveness. "Why are you interrogating me? Can't I have a life outside of this house? You're being paranoid." She made me feel like I was the one doing something wrong, for simply noticing that my wife had vanished and been replaced by a doppelganger. My intuition was screaming. I considered the surprise party theory, but my birthday was months away, and there was no anniversary or holiday on the horizon. The secrecy didn't feel celebratory. It felt heavy, guilty, and anxious. I was losing sleep, my work was suffering, and I was starting to question my own sanity. Was I imagining things? Had I done something to push her away? The thought of talking to Sophia crossed my mind, but I didn't want to overstep and make things worse. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making, armed with nothing but a gut feeling that everything was terribly, horribly wrong. The knot in my stomach turned into a full-blown earthquake yesterday afternoon. Sophia showed up at my door unannounced. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy. She was wringing her hands, and the words tumbled out of her before I could even say hello. "I'm so sorry, David. I'm so sorry. I can't do this anymore." I ushered her inside, my heart hammering against my ribs. She collapsed onto the sofa and buried her face in her hands. "It's Isabella," she choked out. "She's been having an affair with her yoga instructor, Ben, for the last 3 months, and I've been covering for her." The room tilted. I had to sit down, the air suddenly too thick to breathe. The words were there, the confirmation of my deepest fear, but my brain refused to process them. It was like listening to a news report about a disaster in a foreign country. Terrible, but abstract. Sophia, shaking and crying, told me everything. It had started innocently enough with the yoga classes, but it quickly escalated into flirting, then emotional intimacy, and finally, a physical affair. All those extra evenings at the studio, she was with Ben. The girls' nights with Sophia, lies. Sophia had been her alibi, her human shield. She revealed that the weekend getaway Isabella and Sophia had supposedly taken to a spa in the mountains 2 weeks ago was, in fact, a romantic trip for Isabella and Ben. Sophia had even, at Isabella's request, sent me a few text messages from Isabella's phone during that weekend to maintain the illusion. The day I caught them whispering in the kitchen, they were arguing. Sophia had been pleading with Isabella to end the affair and come clean to me, and Isabella was refusing, growing angry and defensive. "My husband, Chris, found out," Sophia sobbed. "He saw some messages on my iPad between me and Isabella. They were explicit, about the cover-ups, about Ben. He lost it. He gave me an ultimatum. I tell you everything, or he files a divorce and tells you himself." Her own marriage was hanging by a thread because of my wife's deception. The sheer scale of the betrayal was staggering. Isabella hadn't just betrayed me. She had corrupted her best friend's integrity and jeopardized her marriage. Sophia, perhaps anticipating my disbelief or needing to prove her sincerity to her own husband, had come prepared. She handed me a small envelope. Inside were printouts, text message logs between her and Isabella, detailing the lies, coordinating alibis, even discussing Isabella's feelings for Ben. And there it was, the smoking gun, a hotel receipt for the spa weekend. It was for a quaint, romantic bed and breakfast in the mountains, paid for with Isabella's credit card. The reservation was under her name and Ben's. Holding that piece of paper, feeling the weight of the proof in my hands, was a uniquely devastating experience. Suspicion is a ghost. Evidence is a brick through a window. I sat there in stunned silence, glaring at the printouts until the words blurred. Sophia kept apologizing, her voice a distant hum. I felt a bizarre, detached sense of calm. The waiting, the wondering, was over. The monster in the shadows had a name and a face. I finally found my voice. "Thank you for telling me," I said, my tone flat and foreign to my own ears. "You need to go home and deal with your own life now. I need to be alone." She nodded miserably, still apologizing as she left. The moment the door closed behind her, the calm shattered. I slid to the floor, my back against the door, and wept great, heaving sobs of rage, hurt, and utter devastation. My 7-year marriage, the life I thought I had, was a carefully constructed lie. I knew I had to confront Isabella, but I needed a plan. I needed to be in control. She came home a couple hours later, humming to herself, completely oblivious to the nuclear bomb that had just detonated in our living room. She leaned in to kiss me, and I thought I might be sick. I forced a smile, asked about her day, and played my part in our final, grotesque act of normalcy. That night, lying next to her in bed, listening to her breathe, I felt a fury so pure and cold it was almost peaceful. I didn't sleep a wink. I confronted her the next evening. I waited until we were both home from work, the familiar evening routine setting in. My heart was a drum solo in my chest, but my mind was clear. I called her into the living room and told her we needed to talk. It's over, Isabella. I know everything. About Ben. I know you've been sleeping with him. Her reaction was a masterclass in deception. First, feigned confusion. Ben? My yoga teacher? What are you talking about? David? That's insane. Then, when I didn't back down, the tears started. How could you think that of me? I love you. I remained stoic. Sophia told me everything. She showed me the proof. The text, the hotel receipt from your little mountain getaway. The moment I said Sophia's name, her mask slipped. The tears dried up instantly, replaced by a venomous rage. She flew into a tirade. That lying bitch. She's always been jealous of us. She's been trying to break us up for years. You're believing her over your own wife. She was screaming, her face contorted with a hatred I'd never seen in her before. She called Sophia every name in the book, accusing her of fabricating the entire story out of spite. I tried to show her the printouts, but she batted my hand away. Those are fake. She's a psycho. She probably photoshopped them. She invented a ludicrous story about the hotel receipt, claiming she'd helped Ben book the room for his cousin, and that her name was on it by mistake. It was a desperate, flailing performance, and it was utterly pathetic. She even swore on her grandmother's memory that she was innocent. The gaslighting was intense. After 8 years, this is the trust you have in me? You're destroying our marriage with your paranoia. She was trying to make me the villain. My anger, which I had kept on a tight leash, finally snapped. I slammed my fist against the wall, leaving a dent in the drywall. The shock of the noise silenced her. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice low and shaking. Just tell me the truth. She stared at me with defiant, tear-filled eyes. There is no truth to tell. You're wrong. That's when I played my final card. Fine. If you won't tell me the truth, I'll go ask Ben for it. I'm sure he'll be more forthcoming. Panic, raw and unadulterated, flashed across her face. No, don't. Why would you do that? He has nothing to do with this. You'll embarrass yourself, she stammered. If your story is true, you have nothing to worry about, I said coldly. But we both know it's not. She stared at me, her chest heaving, and then she completely broke down. Without another word, she turned and ran into the bedroom, slamming the door shut. I didn't follow. I spent the night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, every cell in my body vibrating with a toxic cocktail of heartbreak and rage. In the morning, she emerged, pale and hollow-eyed. As she left for work, I calmly told her, I'm still planning to have a chat with Ben today. She just shook her head, a look of sheer terror on her face, and walked out the door. I was now 100% certain. But I needed to hear the full, unvarnished truth from her. I needed her to admit it. I never made it to the yoga studio. A few hours after she left, Isabella came back home. She must have turned her car around or called in sick. She walked in, her shoulders slumped in defeat, and sat across from me. The fight was gone from her. She looked broken. And then, piece by painful piece, it all came out. It started with a half admission. We kissed. A few times. It was a mistake. Her voice was a whisper. I let out a bitter, humorless laugh. Stop insulting me, Isabella. We're way past we kissed. She took a shuddering breath. We slept together. A pause. Twice. Try again, I said, my voice like ice. I know it's been going on for months. That was the final barrier. The dam broke. She confessed to a 3-month physical and emotional affair. It had started about a month after she began taking his classes. They met at his apartment, at hotels, even in his car. Every late night at the studio or dinner with Sophia was a lie to cover their time together. She admitted she had developed feelings for him, that she felt unseen and unappreciated in our marriage and had been swept up by the attention he gave her. It was a classic, cliché script of the midlife crisis affair, and hearing her recite it felt like a parody of a bad movie. The most gut-wrenching details involved our money. I asked if he ever paid for anything. She looked down, ashamed. No, I did. She had been using our joint account to finance their affair. The expensive dinners, the hotel rooms, the gifts. She had bought him a new designer wallet and a high-end bottle of whiskey, passing them off as client gifts or personal treats. She had even, I discovered, given him a loan of $2,000 because he was in a tight spot. I remembered the withdrawal, which she had explained as a payment for a new car detailer. I felt nauseous. The betrayal of trust was one thing. The financial deception felt like a second, equally vicious stab in the back. She was a sobbing wreck, begging for forgiveness. I'm so sorry, David. I'll do anything. I'll never see him again. We can go to counseling. I'll give you full access to my phone, my bank accounts. Anything. Please don't leave me. She was on her knees, clutching my legs. I gently but firmly pushed her away. You need to stop. You need to leave. The calm finality in my voice scared her more than my anger ever had. Where will I go? She whimpered. Go to your sister's. I don't care. I can't look at you right now. I need you to leave this house. She asked, her voice trembling, if this was the end. I didn't answer. I didn't know yet, but the path ahead was looking very dark and very final. She packed a bag while crying uncontrollably, a pathetic figure shuffling through the home we had built together. Watching her walk out the door was one of the most surreal and painful moments of my life. The silence that descended after she left was deafening. And then, finally, alone and safe, I broke down completely. I cried for the loss, for the betrayal, for the future we would never have. After the storm of tears passed, a grim determination took hold. I called my best friend, Michael. He was at my door in 20 minutes. I told him everything. He listened. He didn't judge. He just was there. His presence was an anchor in a sea of chaos. The next day, I started taking practical steps. I changed the locks. I contacted a divorce lawyer. I moved half of our joint savings into a new private account. I was 99% sure divorce was the only path forward. The trust was not just broken. It had been pulverized. I stopped responding to Isabella's endless streams of apologetic texts. I had nothing left to say. It's been 3 weeks since my life was torn in two. I am now on a firm, if painful, path to a new normal. I met with a lawyer, gathered all the evidence Sophia had provided, and filed for divorce. Isabella was served the papers 4 days ago. Her reaction was predictably volcanic. She came over, the papers crumpled in her fist, begging for a chance to talk. I let her in, partly out of sense of finality, partly out of morbid curiosity. What new performance would she have? It was a symphony of desperation. She promised me the moon, intensive couples therapy, a post-nuptial agreement that would give me everything in the event of another transgression, complete transparency. She even, in a moment that made me physically recoil, suggested I have a hall pass to sleep with someone else to even the score. I shut that down immediately. I am not interested in degrading myself or our history with petty revenge. I listened to her pleas, but I felt nothing. The well of empathy had run dry. When she finally ran out of steam, I spoke calmly. Isabella, it's over. I'm moving forward with the divorce. I don't hate you, but I can never trust you again. There's no path back for us. She wailed that she would be lost without me, that I was her entire world. It was a tragic statement, considering she had set that world on fire. I remained firm, repeating that the decision was final. I eventually had to guide her to the door, her body shaking with sobs. It was the last time I saw her in person, and I intend to keep it that way. My support system has been my salvation. My family has been incredible, offering a safe harbor of unconditional support. My friends, especially Michael, have kept me busy and distracted. I started seeing a therapist to help process the anger and grief in a healthy way, and it's been one of the best decisions I've made. I also had a long, candid conversation with Sophia's husband, Chris. We met for coffee. He's still furious, both at Isabella for dragging his wife into her mess and at Sophia for her compliance. They are in couples counseling, and he's cautiously optimistic. He says Sophia is genuinely remorseful and is doing everything possible to rebuild his trust. I told him I don't blame Sophia anymore. She was in an impossible position and, when forced to choose, ultimately did the right thing. I asked him to pass along that I hold no grudge against her. As for Ben, the yoga instructor, I never confronted him. The caveman fantasy of a physical confrontation was tempting, but he's simply not worth the energy or the potential legal trouble. He is a non-entity, a symptom of a deeper sickness in my marriage, not the cause. Whatever happens between him and Isabella is no longer my concern. So here I am. The divorce proceedings are underway. The life I knew is gone. Some days are still hard, waves of sadness or anger hitting me when I least expect it. But more and more, I feel a sense of clarity and strength. Ending the marriage was the only choice I could live with. The betrayal was too profound, the deceit too calculated. I am focusing on myself, my friends, my family, and rebuilding a life based on honesty. The road ahead is long, but for the first time in months, I can see a light at the end of the tunnel. I'll be okay.